So now we have some examples of how to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. So look at this first one, A. You have 4x squared, I'm going to rewrite it, 4x squared minus 2x equals 0. Now you might be concerned because you're saying, hey, it's not a trinomial. We had ax squared plus bx plus c. That's okay. C can equal 0. It's just a that can't equal 0. So it's okay to have this. It is a quadratic equation. By the way, these are called second degree equations because the degree of the equation is 2. Okay, forgot to mention that earlier. All right, so how do we factor? We'll go through the factoring steps. What's the first step to factoring? Go look at your notes. It's GCF, right? Greatest common factor. So I can factor out a 2x, and I have left 2x minus 1. And that's what equals 0. So let's just double check and make sure we're factoring right. 2x times 2x, is that 4x squared? Yes. 2x times minus 1, is that minus 2x? Yes. Okay, so the factoring is correct. And now we're going to set the factors equal to 0. Now this is like the last video. I have that 2x. You can write 2x equals 0, but it's really just the x that equals 0. But if you're worried about the 2, that's what happens to it. 2 can't be 0, but x could be 0, and then the whole thing would be 0, because you'd have 0 times whatever, and that would be 0. Okay. You might be able to see that from the original equation as well. The other factor I have is 2x minus 1. And now I want to set that equal to 0. So I took my equation. Oh, by the way, it was set to 0. I forgot to mention that. Then I factored it. Then I'm setting each factor equal to 0. And now I want to solve this. You don't have to write these steps probably, but if you do, when in doubt, write it out. Okay. And so I get x equals 1/2. So I have two solutions, x equals 0 and x equals 1/2. Some textbooks are picky and they want you to write it in set notation. I don't really care. This is fine, or you can just put the two boxes, that's fine, as long as I can find your answer. Okay, so now we have another equation, part B. Well, the first step is to set to 0. This is not set to 0, so that's a problem. Okay, 2x squared plus 7x. So I'm going to subtract the 4. I'm going to move that 4 over, and it becomes negative. It changes its sign when it moves. It didn't like moving, so I guess now it's minus 4. And then I have to factor this. Now, I'll go through the factoring here. I'm going to use the AC method. You could use trial and error. It would work nicely, but just in case you're like wondering about the AC method, I need two numbers that multiply to be -8 and add to be 7. Those two numbers are, I don't know why I put that line there. Those two numbers are 8 and -1, right? 8 times -1 is -8, and 8 plus -1 is 7. Okay, so those are the numbers. That means I get this 2x squared, and the 7x is going to split up into 8x and minus 1x. It doesn't matter if you put the 8 first or if you put the minus 1 first. I should have put the minus 1 first, but I didn't. Okay. Draw my dotted line. Now it's a grouping situation. Factor out the 2x. That's the GCF on the left. X plus 4. And then over here, I'm going to have to factor out a minus 1. That's going to change it to the binomial to x plus 4. Again, you can check that by distributing. -1 times x is -1x, and -1 times 4 is -4. And this is what's equaling 0. Now, it's not factored at this point. Our grouping is working nicely, but it's not done yet. So I want to look to make sure that that binomial is the same, and it is. If it weren't, then I have a problem, but it's the same. So I'm going to have x plus 4 as one factor, and 2x minus 1 as another factor. Hey, we had that factor in the last one, the 2x minus 1. Okay, so we can set those to 0. X plus 4 equals 0, or 2x minus 1 equals 0. So let me make a bigger deal out of this. When we get to this point where it's factored, that's when we can use the zero product principle. So you say, when does this factor equal 0? When does that factor equal 0? Because those are going to be the solutions. Okay, so here you would subtract 4, and you get x equals -4. Here we already did it, but you would add 1 and then divide by 2. And so you get x equals 1/2. And so there are two solutions, x equals 1/2 and x equals -4. Now, just one thing to mention, because sometimes I see this mistake. 0 is not always an answer. Here I have two answers, and the answers are -4 and 1/2. Over here, 0 is an answer, but it's not always an answer. Okay, so sometimes I have students and they're like, 0 is always an answer. Nope, it's not always. Okay, so hopefully that helps solving by factoring, and you'll get some practice with that.